Order. Senator Reynolds. Order on my left. Senator Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Attorney General, Senator Brandis. Can the Attorney General explain why bipartisanship is so important in the question of national security?
The Attorney General, Senator Brandis.
Thank you, Mr President. I thank you, Senator Reynolds, for that question. Senator Reynolds, as honourable senators may be aware, has a particular knowledge of the matters concerning national security, having been herself a former Brigadier General in the Australian Army Reserve and a former Adjutant General of the Australian Army. So thank you very much indeed, Senator Reynolds, for asking me that question. Well, it is very important that we maintain an attitude of bipartisanship when it comes to matters of national security because, as I explained yesterday and the day before yesterday, and as the Director-General of Security, Mr Irvine, pointed out in his speech to the National Press Club yesterday, the level of domestic threat to Australia from terrorism, arising in particular from recent events in the Middle East, in Syria and northern Iraq, and the activities of the terrorist group ISIL, now seeking to establish a caliphate in Syria and northern Iraq, presents a higher level of threat than we have seen for some time. And in that regard, I want to acknowledge and thank the Leader of the Opposition, Mr Shorten, for his remarks yesterday morning. When asked about this, he said, and I quote, "When it comes to national security, Labor sees this as a matter above politics." Labor sees this as a matter above politics. Mr Shorten is right. It is a good thing that he said that, and it behoves all members of the Senate, to observe the injunction that Mr Shorten has given. We appreciate and we acknowledge the Labor Party's bipartisan support for the important measures in which the government is embarked to keep our country and our people safe.
Senator Reynolds, a supplementary question.
Thank you. Can the Attorney General inform the Senate what the government is doing to encourage bipartisanship?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr President. Well, the government is keeping the opposition close. Many of the measures that we are introducing were in fact the outcome of a bipartisan report of the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Intelligence and Security that was tabled at the end of the last Parliament. And I want to acknowledge Mr Anthony Byrne, the member for Chisholm, who chaired that committee, for his work. In recent weeks, the opposition has been briefed on no fewer than 5 occasions by the government and agencies. Mr Dreyfus has been briefed on all 5 occasions. Mr Shorten participated in 2 of those briefings. Ms Tanya Plibersek participated in 3 of those briefings. The briefings have been given by the Director-General of Security, Mr Irvine, by officers of the Attorney General's Department and from my office. We will continue to keep the opposition informed as we appreciate their bipartisan support.
Senator Reynolds, a final supplementary.
Thank you, Mr President. Can the Attorney General inform the Senate what the government is doing to engage the broader community on the current national security environment and proposed new laws?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr President. Well, one of the things we're doing, Senator Reynolds, and this was part of the package of measures that the Prime Minister, the Foreign Minister and I announced on the 5th of August, is investing additional money in community engagement. I met with Islamic community leaders on the 2nd of July. Last week, the Prime Minister met with Islamic community leaders in Sydney, and the Prime Minister and I together met with Islamic community leaders in Melbourne. I will be meeting tomorrow with Islamic community leaders in Sydney once again, and next week in Melbourne once again. As I've said many times, the moderate mainstream of the Islamic community are our essential partners in this task, and we will keep them close, we will keep them engaged, and as the Prime Minister and I committed to them, we will develop these measures in collaboration and in cooperation with them because we acknowledge their importance in these measures.
Thank you.